up, sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on a Wednesday here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your evening. I'm so excited for tonight's show because a lot is going on. We got new hires. We've also got more firings. Chase Stevis joining us. So it's interesting, man. Like I said, I think the Jets, they're cooking, and it looks, if this was kind of what we predicted, this is kind of what we thought would happen, and the Jets finally got their new head coach. I cannot wait to dig into more of that.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy to see how it is, and you know, the Jets have a chance to change everything, including in the draft, because, you know, the report that came out today that said for the Titans that they're not in the business to pass on the number one a generational talent, which more than likely means they're going after Travis Hunter. And the Jets and the Raiders, whoever wants to, could trade up to number 2 and get their choice of their guy with Cleveland. So Cleveland realistically holds the cards in the draft this year. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have more and more about the draft here in the coming days. But I do want to start with this because the news officially broke out in New York. And it is official that the New York Jets have officially decided to go and hire Aaron Glenn. I like this hire because you're getting, once again, a defensive coach in this building. And especially with the talent that is shaped around them, you're not taking this for granted. Now, listen, the thing about Aaron Glenn is he's not just a defensive-minded coach. He made that very clear. He's more about being a coach inside the building. And that's both offensive and defensive. He wants to know every part of what's going on with the Jets. And so to me, I feel like this is perfect jet fuel, as of course, with our little title here that we have. And it's funny. The thing about this is that with Aaron Glenn now in the building, the Jets will finally have some type of stability. Now, the question mark I know with a lot of people is, what is he going to do with this? What's he going to do with this Jets defense? I think the Jets defense is going to be fine. I think what this is going to allow is that you're going to have Sauce Gardner have a comeback type year this next year, because that was the one thing when Robert Saleh got fired is Sauce Gardner didn't even look like himself. So he's going to work a lot on the corner end. Now, the other thing is that DJ Reed, one of their other top corners, he's going to be testing the free agent market. He's probably going to get paid somewhere. But then that's where you got to go and get another corner, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency. But the Jets, this defense is not going to be taken for granted. And the other thing is, too, they've also got some very good offensive pieces I like. Alou Fashanu, that rookie out of Penn State, he will be in his second year now, and he's officially hit. Tyron Smith is probably going to retire, so they could go and get another tackle. The other thing is, depending on it, I think, to me personally, I know a lot of people love Garrett Wilson, but I personally would say trade away Garrett Wilson, get some complimentary picks, because at least this is a hot commodity right now in the free agent trade market. So I would go and get draft capital. I would go and draft another receiver. I would maybe go and get another wide receiver, at least a veteran, to build this up. You've got two really good running backs I like. And so at the end of the day, all you would really need is just a tight end. And I think that the Jets would be solid. But the thing is you're going to finally have stability in this room. Now, the question mark becomes, what are they going to do as far as the GM? I think with having Aaron Glenn now, at least kind of more of an alpha male and a grown-up in the room, this is what's going to help the New York Jets find a sense of direction. This is what it's going to take, because you've already got the Patriots with Mike Vrabel, and now they got Josh McDaniels. They went and got a really good, and he's a former defensive line coach for the Detroit Lions, who Vrabel respects very, very highly, and made him the defensive coordinator. So New England's got some pieces. And then they've got plenty of draft capital. They got plenty of free agent cap. And so that's where I think they're going to make it work. So to me, the other thing is you've also got Josh Allen twice a year with Buffalo. And then there's Miami. But I feel like Miami, if they don't get themselves right, they're going to find themselves right down. They're going to find themselves right down in the drain. And I don't know what's going to happen with Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer if they don't get this right. But this is a good day for Jet fans. Okay, this is a good day. All right. You're no longer having to deal with Aaron Rodgers. And they've even came out and said that they plan to move up both Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Allen Lazard, because they want to get rid of the connections toward Aaron. And I don't blame the Jets. And I don't blame Aaron Glenn. If you want to build stability, you got to find the right people that you are honestly going to gel with. This is part of the reason why you got to have a healthy culture. And the Jets haven't really found that. So to me personally, I think this is going to work. I think this works. Aaron Glenn is going to have at least a mature person in the room as far as quarterback and as far as playmaker. And I think the Jets would be in stable condition, because the thing is that this was a job that is so highly talented from top to bottom on the roster. This is not a bad job. Of course, you're going to have to deal with the Johnsons, but at least it's going to be the other brother, and it's not going to be Woody Johnson. They have a kind of a deal where they're going to pass it off, and I think it's like every 4 years. It's almost like a presidential, election term. That's what they're treating this thing as. So I think this could work. I think honestly, the Jets, keep your eyes out on them. I think once they get the GM right, I expect them to be making some moves. Maybe clear up the room a little bit. But at the same time, I expect them to do some very good wonders. All right, Chase, what'd you think of this? I mean, we talked about this on Monday, that I felt like Aaron Glenn was the right candidate. And now the wild card was going to be Rex Ryan. Now, again, I would have been fine with either. Because you need to get stability in this room. You need to get stability in this organization. Now, because you've got, I would presume, the alpha male, because this was the same thing with Robert Saleh. You got the alpha male in the room. Now you've got to go and get a GM that is going to be on the same page. And you know what? There's one other team that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, because they had a coach. They had him right there in their hands. And then he said, oh, no, thanks. I'm not going to deal with it because of one particular person. You know who I'm talking about. So
and now he's gone, which is hilarious. Because
I know. That's why,
once they realized that their main choice, which was the Bears' new head coach, he said no because of this person being there. And that was the sole reason why he chose the Bears. He was going to the Jags, but he said no because of this person. And then the most recent guy.
So cutthroat on him the whole entire time when we come back for break, because there is a lot to unload. But at the same time, to the Jets, I mean, you're getting competitive with the Bills twice a year. You got the Dolphins, who, if they can't figure this stuff out next year, I feel like they're probably going to clean house. And then at the same time, you've got the Patriots, who they're getting the band back together, except a brand new DC. And so now, and this is the thing, this is what's going to be exciting about the state of the AFC East. It's not going to be particular of one team. It's going to be now, I'd say 3 of the 4, because the one who's outside looking in is the Dolphins. So if they don't get it right, Mike McDonald and Chris Greer, I think Mike McDaniel, you're going to be out. I mean, that's initially what it's going to come down to. But the Jets, this is good for them. They needed
it's going to
stability.
be interesting to see who their new OC is going to be. It's going to be interesting to see who the defensive coordinator is going to be. It's also going to be interesting to see, like, who the GM is, because that's going to be the decision on what they do at quarterback. That's going to be the decision is if they go to pick up a free agent guy, like a Geno Smith or something, and bring him back to the Jets.
Now, the luck is you got 2 running backs I like. I would say because of the value. Now, as much as I don't want to get rid of this player, but Garrett Wilson, he's a hot commodity, and his value is very, very good. So I would go and get draft capital back and then go and draft a receiver and then maybe go and pay for one in the market.
See, I think that if you really want to get rid of Garrett Wilson and, like, you know, get a, like, that's why I say that number 2 pick for Cleveland is going to be the hot commodity in the draft, because if the Titans already know that they want Travis Hunter at 1, that number 2 pick, you'll have your choice of Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, which means the Jets, the Raiders, or the Giants, or anybody in that draft is going to put an offer into Cleveland. And if the Jets call and they're like, hey, we'll give you Garrett Wilson and a 4th-round pick if you give us your 2nd overall pick. We'll swap you the 7th, and then we'll give we'll swap you the 7th, and then you give us like a 3rd-round pick.
Well, I think the value on Garrett Wilson, and to be honest with you, is I feel like he may be a 2nd rounder. A 2nd round, maybe a 3rd and a 4th, or a 4th, depending on, because they're going to want premiums. That's kind of what I see with the Jets. If they're looking at a guy like Garrett Wilson, who is highly productive, you know, it's unfortunate because of the way it was handled with Aaron Rodgers. I truthfully believe you're going to get some high value. So that's why it respectfully, if I go and get a 2nd, and I've already got a 1st-round pick, you know, if I go get a high 2nd and then maybe a 3rd or a 4th, I could probably then move it, and then I could spend the money elsewhere. Because now I've got an offensive line that probably I could go and get another tackle in the free agent market. I could go do that. And then depending on quarterback, either I draft one or I go into the free agent market and see who's available. So there are plenty of options that the Jets could do. But at least the good news is that defense is going to be a lot better next year. I think Sauce Gardner will be fine. I think the other thing is Jermaine Johnson, Michael Carter, and a couple others on that defensive side of the ball, they're going to be primed for some comeback years. They really, really are. I think the Jets, they're going to be fine in this regard. I think with Aaron Glenn, you're going to get the best out of these players. I know people are kind of skeptical because, well, we've seen Aaron Glenn in the secondaries. I'm like, but here's the thing. Garrett Wilson needed the direction, okay? Because once Saleh left the building, he was sporadic. They couldn't put him anywhere. So now that you have Glenn, you now can get him back on track. That's probably the biggest goal. Because if they're going to pay Sauce Gardner, you're hoping that next year he gets better. That's why I think having Aaron Glenn, you're not going to take that for granted. It'll be fine. So, but I truthfully think the Jets will be competitive. I think they will be. May not be easy against Buffalo. You may go toe-to-toe with New England, and as far as Dolphins go, could go either way. But I feel a lot better about New York today than when I did when they got Aaron Rodgers. I feel a lot better about that.
Yeah, it all is going to depend on who they get at QB, because that is going to be the deciding factor of how successful this team is. Because if we had Aaron Rodgers Like, if we had 2020 Aaron Rodgers, the one that won the NFL MVP, we would have had the New York Jets in the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, the AFC next year is going to be a lot more competitive than what this year gave us.
Yeah. I see Cleveland bouncing back. I see Cincinnati.
Buffalo is going to be competitive. Baltimore's got, they got a bad taste in their mouth. The Chargers have plenty of cap, and they've got, by the way, this is how good Joe Ortiz is. He got a complimentary 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick for 3 players, 3 of them. That's why I'm like, that's actually pretty damn good. They got some assets. So that's why I'm like, there are some teams in there in the AFC that are getting some assets. They're getting plenty of cap. I mean, the Raiders right now, I know right now the Raiders are kind of looking at themselves like, what are we going to do from here? But I feel like Pete Carroll, he may be probably the most surefire answer that they have. He may be.
Yeah.
Because what now at this point, after that bad taste in Liam Cohen's mouth, he's now back in Tampa. He's staying one more year, and I think
he was their number 1 choice, by the way. Did you know that?
Yes, he was. That's what I'm saying. We'll get into that after the break. I just, like I said, I'm savoring the whole feeling because I got fuel of fire ready to burst. That's why
it's insane. I'm like,
how
do you fumble the bag so badly on that? Like, oh my God.
You know what? There's teams that are built to actually make a move like this, and teams that just find themselves short.
This is where always a reason going to land.
There's always it could be. And listen, this is their second chance. This is their second chance to do so. And now it'll be a lot better, but I wish it was sooner than later. Anyway, listen, 2025, we're already in the middle of January, and boy, has it kicked off in a big way. And the only best way to kick off 2025 is getting involved with BetUS as one of the top sports books in the country for over 30 years, not to mention daily fantasies and the best in line sports betting lines, whether parlay leg bets, single bets, what to choose from. BetUS has you covered in that. Plus, BetUS for the 2025 year gives you your very own account manager when you sign up so that you will never, ever get off the edge of your game. You're always on top of it. Latest analytics, latest stuff to know, stats, all that good stuff. And this is what we got to do on our show. We always got to stay on top of this stuff. And BetUS will do the same for you. When you sign up, $50 or more into your deposit with 3 deposits that go up to 125% bonuses of up to $2,000 in bonuses just by 3 deposits down. Triple the fun, triple the opportunity for you to win some big bucks. Not to mention the best in-line casino entertainment when you check out BetUS.com for yourself. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states, wherever you may be at, because BetUS doesn't want you to gamble irresponsibly. They want you to enjoy the fun and gamble with the best of the best at BetUS. BetUS.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
All right, so this just hit early on the show. Welcome back in, guys. Glad to have you all here. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, boy, what a comedy show that this is. And should I have expected any less? No, it's about the same old Jacksonville. Seems to me like, and I've been in Jacksonville once in my life. Very, very humid. Like I'm talking 97% humidity. Skin sticky. Now, yeah, you might be able to like have clear skin, but at the same time, the only thing that I think they care a little bit more about is their wrestling and all the rest of the stuff that goes on in Jacksonville. But so this just hit, and I'm not surprised about this, and honestly, neither should you, is that the Jacksonville Jaguars, because early on they fired Doug Peterson, but they went with the idea of keeping Trent Baalke. Now, here's the thing that Jacksonville knew they had to learn their lesson the hard way, is because Trent Baalke and a lot of very trustworthy people doesn't trust Trent Baalke. They will not do business with him. Go back to 2014 with the San Francisco 49ers. Jim Harbaugh was there in San Francisco. Okay, and he came onto this job at 2011 and took the team to the NFC Championship with Alex Smith, Frank Gore, and another multitude of very good talented players. And Jim Harbaugh was able to build a culture. They were run-first offense. They were also a more of a ground and pound, sock you in the face type offense and defense. I mean, they were the kind that were just relentless. They had very, very good players on defense. But then, after the Super Bowl in 2012, which is unfortunate, the team still managed to be competitive, but it was slowly starting to come down. But the truth of the matter is, Trent Baalke was the GM in San Francisco, who was also responsible for the broken ties with Jim Harbaugh, which caused Jim Harbaugh, after parting ways with San Francisco, to go back to his alma mater in Michigan, win a national title, and the rest is history. But Trent Baalke hired Jim Tomazula, and what happened then? They completely tore themselves apart in 2015. 2016, they hired Chip Kelly, and it got worse from there. That's why Trent Baalke had always been on the hot seat. And the thing about it is I feel like Trent Baalke, in my opinion, feels very egotistical, a guy that is never going to change his ways, more of, like a kind that's like more machismo, like I'm the one who could build a success. Well, then when he got to Jacksonville, he's responsible for Urban Meyer. And listen, Urban will still go down as arguably one of the greatest coaches in college football. He still will. I remember watching him in his days in Utah, Florida, and Ohio State. All of those successes will never go unheard. So Urban Meyer, even if he didn't succeed in the NFL level, did not hinder his chances as far as being a Hall of Fame college football coach. It didn't. But Baalke is also responsible with Doug Peterson, but yet not building around the talents you should have. And when Doug Peterson got fired at the end of the season, what was weird is how Trent Baalke, his job was retained. Listen, I know Brian Thomas was a hit, but look at this roster. Josh Hines Allen is a very good pass rusher. Oh, and by the way, Caleb on Chason, You know where he's at now? Balling out with the Raiders. And the Raiders should respectfully give him a contract after they just put him onto the practice squad and now he's balling out. I would literally give him a contract after all that. The other thing is a couple of other defensive pieces. Where are they now? They're nowhere to be found. And at the same time, offensively, the offensive line is not that great. And they thought they fixed it, but it didn't work. And then Trevor Lawrence got hurt again. And Trevor Lawrence, by the way, $55 million a year that you're paying at quarterback, who only has one playoff win thanks to Brandon Staley. Jacksonville hadn't even been back in the playoffs since 2022. And Trent Baalke's responsible for all this. Now, this was a source that actually came out, and this was true. So one of the hottest commodities, and Chase and I talked about this on Monday, is I felt like this was the perfect fit for Liam Cohen. This was perfect. Stays in Florida, never has to travel too far. Not to mention, offensive-minded coach with not a ton of pressure. Because Jacksonville, let's be honest, the bar isn't even set that high. It's not that pressurizing, okay? Because everybody knows the history of the Jags. Okay, they've made it to the AFC Championship game multiple times, and the latest one was 2017 with that great defense. We all remember that. The other thing is, there's not a ton of pressure because look at the AFC South. Look at the state of it. It's wonky. Texans, Colts, Titans, number 1 overall pick, and then there's the Jags. And the Jaguars are up there in the top 5 picks. So the thing that everybody was afraid of was how Trent Baalke was still there as the GM. Nobody wanted to work with him. Liam Cohen, after Ben Johnson got hired, was the second hottest commodity as far as a head coach. And once he got there and in the interview, you would think he would have wanted that Jacksonville job. And he did. But do you know what he said instead? No, thanks. I'm not going to work with Trent Baalke. I'm not going to do that. What does that tell you about Trent Baalke as a GM? He's not willing to work with any and everybody. I mean, think about the list of coaches that Trent Baalke had. Jim Tomsula failed. Chip Kelly, post-Philadelphia, failed. That's what got him fired. The other thing is Urban Meyer, respected college coach, he got fired. Doug Peterson, who, by the way, players in the locker room actually liked Doug Peterson. They just couldn't stand Trent Baalke. So I felt like Shad Khan, in my opinion, kind of wasted the timeline to fire him. If you were going to fire Doug Peterson, I would have fired Trent Baalke too. Because the thing about it is, this is why I think it's so unique about the Raiders and the Jags, because both of them kind of had to deal with this predicament. Now, the difference is Tom Telesco produced Brock Bowers, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and a couple other players. The knock on Tom Telesco was after the third round, he's no good. That's his wall. And that was where the problem was. I would have been curious to see what he would have done in year 2 with this Raiders roster. I felt like if he learned his lesson, he probably would have. But once Doug Peterson got fired, Trent Baalke was retained. And you know what it felt like? It felt a lot like the Giants. I was okay with Brian Dable getting retained, but why is Joe Shane still there as a GM? Why? All of the red flags all came out on Hard Knocks. Didn't draft a quarterback, traded for a defensive player that you should have worked more on offense, especially with the offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas. And just you let Saquon Barkley leave the building. To me, I would have fired Joe Shane. And listen, I'm not all about firing guys in the first year, but you should have at least a common sense what's going on. And with the Cons, they're just a weird ownership. The fact that you fire Doug Peterson and not fire Trent Baalke leaves me to believe, what the hell are you doing? If you imagine this, if Trent Baalke was fired along with Doug Peterson, I'd say Ben Johnson would consider Jacksonville, new owner, new GM, You got a new playbook. You probably would make Trevor Lawrence work, another talented quarterback who has a bunch of years on his belt. You just got to get him right on track. I mean, rather than having to go into year 2 of Caleb Williams in a bigger setting like Chicago. And that's why I'm curious, and we'll talk a little bit more about Ben Johnson in Chicago because, again, I hope this works. But Jacksonville, there's not a ton of pressure. The division's wonky. There's not a whole lot of expectation. There's not a bar that's set in Jacksonville. By the way, when I talked with James Canada on this show, he even told me himself when it came to Tampa Bay, it's cocktails in the morning in Florida. There's not a ton of pressure there, whether you're in Jacksonville or Tampa or Miami. You're fine to be who you are. And so Trent Baalke, though, with him being in that building and Liam Cohen, who decided to back out and stay in Tampa, what does that tell you? Baalke was initially the problem. And for the fact that Shad Khan had to wait this long, I would have fired Trent Baalke sooner than later. I don't know what I'm doing wasting my time with this. But that's why I think the Khans, they are learning their lesson with this. And because, now, I'm not saying it's too late for Jacksonville because the report is now Robert Saleh, he's your second chance now. And I actually would like this of Robert Saleh because that means the defense is going to get better and right. And like I said, if I'd say their first pick in the draft should be a corner, and I like Will Johnson from Michigan because at least that solidifies their corners. And then you're going to get the best out of Josh Hines-Allen. You're going to fix up that front. And so to me, I feel like Robert Saleh would work for this job. And what he should have got, just like in New York, he should get his own personnel. Now, Joe Douglas, by the way, was not even a terrible GM. He's responsible for at least 6 of the last 9 hits. Okay, the only one that wasn't was quarterback, but that's 65% of the league. And so Saleh, because you're going to have a veteran quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, who, to be honest, this is the chance for Trevor Lawrence to turn this thing around. You got to get consistency in this offense. If they do, Jacksonville, look out. But you got to get the right GM. And I felt like this was the Khans' learning lesson with you should have fired Trent Baalke sooner than later. You would have had a chance at Ben Johnson. But you know what? You're better off learning from some of these mistakes. That's the goal in life. Chase of the news.
This is the Hot Press.
I'm telling you, with Trent Baalke fired and Liam Cohen going back to Tampa Bay, just tells you, like I said, you know what I think would be a very good job was available. I'd be interested in that Miami job because I just see Liam Cohen staying in Florida. That's why it was perfect to be in Jacksonville, but because you had a roadblock in Trent Baalke, it kind of screwed the whole thing up. So that's why I'm like, I think, again, if that is made available in Miami, if Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, if they can't get themselves right this next season,
well, Cleveland would be
I'd say
an option
Liam
too.
Cohen would be good.
I could see that as well because, like, with all of the quarterback prospects that are coming into this next year, the roster that Cleveland has. Ooh.
Well, I have a feeling because Kevin Stefanski, he's smarter than most people think. Yeah. I'd say his job is going to be safe. Now, but the thing is, if you're the GM, you got to be able to rebound. You got to get this right. Because, like I said, I don't think any of this is on the coach or the GM. I think a lot of this was because of the influence of the Haslams. That's the thing. It is. But like I said, when it came to Jacksonville, this is why the Khans are just such weird owners, because it was just like, if you fired Trent Baalke sooner than later, you've heard me on this show, I would have much rather had seen Ben Johnson go to Jacksonville than go to Chicago. If you really want to be realistic, because there's not a ton of pressure, the fan base, you could grow the fan base even
But
better.
apparently he was their third option. Or their first choice was Liam, their second choice was Robert Saleh, and their third choice was Ben Johnson.
Yeah, but you want to know why? You know why? Because
I
again,
know.
all of this is because it's all because Trent Baalke, there are certain people he won't work with. But again, the writing's all on the wall. He's responsible for Jim Tomsula in San Francisco in 2015. That was a failure. Chip Kelly, who came off of Philadelphia after everything that happened from there, that's a failure. And listen, you know as well as I do when it comes to Urban Meyer. His coaching regime in college was never stained. It's just, I mean, if it didn't work in the NFL, it's not going to stain Urban Meyer's legacy, because we know him to be a great college coach. Utah, Florida, and Ohio State. He's done a lot of great things at that time.
Don't forget Bowling Green.
Bowling Green, yep, another one too. And that's the thing, is I just think a lot of this is just all falling on the GM. Just because you get Brian Thomas right doesn't mean that you are the answer. That's why I'm like,
yeah, because of all the contracts that he signed, you signed Christian Kirk to a massive contract that should never
Christian
have been
Kirk
signed
to a contract, Gabe Davis to a contract. Yeah, where have they been?
Yeah. No, but the piece of news that I have today is now that there's been 3 coaching options available.
Yep.
Or done. There's 4 that are available: the Jags, the Saints, the Cowboys, and the Raiders. And right now, the lead guy that it seems to be for the Jags is Robert Saleh, and then for the Raiders, they're going to request some more interviews, but it looks like their lead candidate is Todd Monken. Nobody wants that Saints job right now. They have not had anybody come back in for a second interview because nobody wants the job.
I think they're probably patiently waiting on the Saints job. If I'm like hypothetically looking at this when it comes to the Saints job, we know that there's going to be a lot of dead money cap they need to get rid of. But I think they're kind of patiently waiting to see what happens. So they're not in any rush. I think because you're not going to get any kind of coach in this building. You got to get the right one who's willing to at least handle this kind of amount of crap. Because remember, Denver had to go through this with Sean Payton. When Sean Payton came into the building, they had to deal with that Russell Wilson contract. They had to deal with like a multitude of messes that George Patton and all of them that they kind of put themselves through. And even that one was not as bad. Sean Payton was able to turn this thing around. They made them into a playoff team. Now, because they're on the other side of the light here, now they're going to be a lot better of an organization. They will be back to stabilization. I just feel like you're not going to hire any coach in particular. I think you got to handle the right one to at least handle the cap hell. The other thing is you got to work the side of the ball. If I got to be honest with you, Mike McCarthy's still there, and he's a stabilizer. I'm not saying he's a Sean Payton or a Jim Harbaugh, but I've seen the wins. I've seen the playoff appearances. Add stability to this organization and get the right people and not overpay for some of the contracts you're already paying right now. I think it could work.
I think so too. So yesterday they had voting for the MLB Hall of Fame, and there was 3 guys that got inducted in, but the 2 I want to talk about is Ichiro Suzuki, who was 1 vote shy of the unanimous Hall of Fame, and then CC Sabathia, a All-Star, Cy Young, World Series champion for the Cleveland Indians, Milwaukee Brewers, and the New York Yankees. And he is going into the Hall of Fame as a Yankee, which is so sad and surprising, but I figured he'd go in as an Indian because that's who drafted him. That's where he won his Cy Young from, and that's where he had a lot of his All-Star appearances from too. Granted, he won a World Series with the Yankees, but I'd still thought that he would have went in as an Indian.
So here's my thing. As far as the three, listen, I'm happy Billy Wagner's in. Because Billy the Kid, man, wasn't he electrifying closing out games? Now, he may go out, and listen, he was actually a part of very good clubs. He was a part of, the Houston Astros at that time when they had their when they had their talent with Jet Bagwell, Craig Biggio, multiple other players. Houston had that run. He was also a part of the Atlanta Braves, who that one was a pretty good roster as well from top to bottom. So I am happy that Billy Wagner at least got in. Ichiro, my thing on this is, I knew Ichiro would get into the Hall of Fame because a part of this is that they were going to add in the hits he also accumulated when he was in Japan. And again, should it be a broad range? Well, here's the other thing too, is that Major League Baseball's opening up that door with as far as broadening stats, because think about it, now they've added in all the stats all together from players in the Negro Leagues now. They're added those in from that history, and then they're also broadening, every one of them internationally. So Ichiro Suzuki, though, think about how electrifying he was in 2021 or 2001 with that roster and Rookie of the Year, got the team to a ALCS, Jay Buhner and all that. He was so electrifying to watch. And he didn't even have to do so much. Think about, and he had consecutive years where he had over 200 hits.
And he's one of the most memorable Mariners that you can remember out of anybody. Absolutely. And now the thing about CC Sabathia is, and let me ask you this, because I understand where you get drafted, winning a Cy Young. I was not surprised that he would honestly be represented as a member of the Pinstripes. And let me tell you why. I know with all the history that he was in Cleveland, and man, he was electrified. He really, really was. I remember that trade when he got traded from Cleveland to Milwaukee during that postseason, because I remember how electrifying he was in that pitching staff before they went to Giovanni Gallardo and the rest of them years later. But when he got signed by the New York Yankees, he was the big fish. He was the big fish in the free agent market, along with A.J. Burnett. They were two very good starting pitchers, on top of, I think, arguably one of the greatest postseason pitchers in Andy Pettitte and multiple others. You knew that Yankee team was stacked. So a part of me, because I know we had this conversation, would you rather be memorized? Okay, and this is hypothetically, but if you were in Major League Baseball, doesn't matter the position, would you rather be memorized as the guy who won Rookie of the Year with one club? Or on the other hand, would I be memorized by an organization I won multiple titles? And again, it just depends. Do you want to show loyalty to the team that drafted you and where you started your career, or do you want to go with an opposite? It's the same situation that Joe Hayden had. Joe Hayden got drafted by the Browns, played from 2010 to 2014 or 15 with the Browns, and then went to the Steelers, and then ended up retiring, and he retired as a Brown rather than retiring as a Steeler.
Well, here's the thing, is because Joe Hayden's career, he was solidified because, yes, he spent more majority of his years in Cleveland than in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh, he was a part of an organization, and mind you, they didn't even win a Super Bowl until since 2010. They did, and since 2009. They once they won Super Bowl 43, that's it. The Steelers, that was the end of that. But he was a part of very good defenses. But the point I'm making is because even though he was very electrifying with the Cleveland Indians, loved watching him pitch, but I've also seen more of his dominance in New York, because not just the World Series trophy, but I've watched him win multiple games I've also watched him retain his ERA for at least as long as he could until he kind of slowed down because of injuries, which is understandable. But the other thing was, he was just a guy that just knew exactly how to use his locations and knew exactly which pitches to use. And so to me, I feel like there was more of an oomph of dominance in the Yankees than I feel like that there was in Cleveland. No disrespect, but it's like, even though I know there's a history there, but listen, as far as loyalty, look, that's thrown out the window. This is 2025. This is what the norm is now. And
I would have loved to have
I know
him.
it's hard, but you know what I mean?
I would have loved to have him with that Francona team, like from 2013 to 2016. Imagine if he was on our rotation in 2016. We actually win that World Series.
I think the Indians would have won that last game. But again, even without it, I mean, that was still an entertaining World Series. But either way, but my big point is, here's my problem with this. How is it that Andrew Jones is still not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
How is it that, there's a couple people on this Hall of Fame? This is why I have such questions about the baseball writers, because, like I said, I felt like that year when Scott Rowland got into the Hall of Fame was a wasted year. And the only reason of that is because they're trying to push the agenda. They don't want players from the PED era in there. And it's like, but regardless of that, look at the stats. And at the same time, how could you prove that personally? I know that, you know what the Chicago Cubs just did not too long ago? They brought back Sammy. So it's like, well, when are we going to get over this? Because here's the thing. Jeff Bagwell, they had nothing to prove from there, because Bagwell was arguably a very talented player, and they had nothing on Craig Biggio, because Biggio wasn't even that kind of guy. He was just a kid from Stony Brook, New York, okay? And he came in and played baseball, got 3,000 hits. The guy was tremendous in Houston. So it's like, when are we going to put that part of our minds down?
I mean, it's very difficult, because when you use drugs or steroids or whatever it is, PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, the thing that really
but guess what?
People.
Guess what? If it wasn't for the PED era, you know what you'd be? You'd be the NBA right now. Major League Baseball would be the NBA right now, which is dying of numbers. And now, because baseball post that era now, they've come into this point where now I've got 3 of the best Japanese players playing for one organization, and they've won a World Series, and they're probably going to build their dominance of their dynasty. But rule changes, sped of the game, it's getting better.
That's the last piece of news that I got, but I want to get to this real quick. So the thing that ticks me off about that, and that people that haven't played the game or grew up with it, because baseball is my favorite sport. It's the love of the game, and I've played it for so long, growing up from 4 years old up until pre-college. Or I played on like a walk-on college team, and when you take a performance-enhancing drug, it increases your bat speed, increases your strength, increases everything in your body, which gives you a lot more power, which means you are able to hit more home runs or hit the ball farther, harder, everything like that. These baseball writers want to make sure that these guys that basically cheated are not in the Hall of Fame, because if you can't do it naturally, you don't deserve to be in there.
Even before Barry Bonds even took PEDs, look how fast his bat speed was in Pittsburgh. I mean, how can I fight that? Because here's the thing.
If he doesn't take the PEDs, does he hit 765?
How could they prove that with him? How could they prove that with Barry Bonds? Truthfully, I understand that there was a part of it that went into play, but Rafael Palmeiro, absolutely not. Roger Clemens, yeah, I would probably say no. But then Sammy Sosa literally broke down and talked about this. But then the other thing is just like, you look at Mark McGwire, you look at Jose Canseco, and like a bunch of other players. But when it came to Barry Bonds, I've watched those highlight tapes from Pittsburgh and on to San Francisco, and he still had arguably one of the quickest bat speeds. He still did. Whether with or without it. And this is why that I'm like, it's so misconstrued in a way, because at the same time, the stats are the stats. And everybody has to realize, I mean, we watched the documentary of the 98 season, right? We all watched it. How big were the numbers before the 98 season? It was not that great until Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, and Ken Griffey Jr., they all happened. And that was when it was the race for the long ball. Everybody tuned into it. I remember that by heart. And so that's why I'm like, it's a misconstrued topic, because at the same time, I mean, I just looked at the list for the 26 candidates. Ryan Braun, Gio Gonzalez. There's several other players I really like. But I'm telling you, I mean, think about this. Ryan Braun, he was sidelined the entirety of the season because of PEDs. But think about it this way. Did he literally get yoked? I think the part of it was that it was more of it's a recovery form. When I last dug into the topic, when it first came out, it was fresh. I was in high school when this came out. I looked deep into that topic, and it was more of like, just a recovery thing. And again, they now have had it to where they regulate some of the gels that they use now for recovery purposes. And then, of course, there's the form of HGHs that usually would be formed and mixed in the same time. But Ryan Braun, I still felt like Matt Kemp should have won the MVP in 2011. Personally, truthfully, because then that 2012 year would obviously be Ryan Braun. Because Braun was tearing it up. I mean, he had a tall, lanky, and he had that kind of swing, dude, that it was just...
He had like a Travis Hafner kind of swing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, it was just so easy. But at the same time, I just feel like there are still players on there that I still question why they're still there, because, again, Andrew Jones is my hot commodity, because have they seen how many gold gloves he's won? Have they seen how many silver sluggers that he's had? And not to mention how impactful he was in the Atlanta Braves organization?
Yeah, I agree.
When are we going to honestly put that into consideration? That's why I'm like, okay. I mean, to me personally, I felt like these three were okay, in my opinion. I feel like you probably could have gotten another year from CeCe. That's just my opinion. I would have got one more year. He's not out of the ballot. He's still fresh. I think you would have at least got one more year with CeCe. Then he would go in, because I just would want to see Andrew Jones in there. I'll be okay with it until he is. But I just feel like there's just something about that with baseball writers. It doesn't sit well.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the last piece of news that I have, we'll stick with the MLB. And I looked into this because my brother had mentioned something to me about this. And it's about the Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, Roki Sasaki.
Contract. So his manager came out and said that he's got some mental health issues, that he does not want to be in a big city, a big organization, and have to deal with a lot of the media. He wants to go to a small market team. That's one thing that's kind of concerning. Another thing is that, he had a contract in place ready to sign with the Toronto Blue Jays for more years and more money than what the Dodgers were offering. And he turned it down to go to the Dodgers at the last minute. And from what I looked at, is the Dodgers are being investigated because they are questioning why a player is being offered more money, more years on a contract, and not just more money, about $25 to $30 million more than what he is offered with the Dodgers. And then you back out of the contract and go sign with the Dodgers. So, and it is true, the Dodgers are getting looked at for I don't know if it's a tampering issue or what it is, but they are getting looked at and investigated.
You know what it is? I'm playing with Shohei Ohtani. Should I go chase for the bag? or should I go chase for titles? Okay, look, I understand. I truthfully do understand everybody's frustration, but get over yourselves. You're the same people that basically collect, baseball cards, these weirdos. Like, just drink a beer. Because here's the thing, and it's actually funny because there was a piece that Chris Rose, I'll see if I can bring it up, but there was a piece that Chris Rose was talking about in regards to this. Because, and everything he said was true. Everything he said was absolutely 100% valid. I could probably, I'm going to bring this up, but my finishing topic with this is that, listen, how many times have the Toronto Blue Jays come up just a little short and then they lose? They did it several times. They came up short with Shohei Ohtani. They came up short with a couple of other players. They could never quite get the deal done. You know what the only deal they were able to get done? Anthony Santander. That's the only one that they were able to get it done. So again, I think I'm not pinning this on Toronto in any sort of way. But my point is that when it comes to, when we go into these negotiations and all the rest of it, I just look at the players and it's like, do I want to chase the bag and maybe not be able to see a World Series? Or do I go and win titles because I have a very good team I'm able to get in with. I'm able to get into the big game. So that's the thing. And Roki Sasaki and multiple others, they're willing to do that. I mean, you got to think, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he came in with a big contract, and that's another fellow Japanese player who's very trustworthy, right? So it's like you're getting familiarized with two players, and I think that's kind of more the impact. I don't think it's more of an impact of the Dodgers per se. Because the thing is that every team in Major League Baseball outside of the Dodgers could get into the same page. They just haven't figured that out yet. It's not illegal. It's not anything that's worth like a tampering deal. I just think it's more of, I got the players, I've got the camaraderie. That's really what it comes down to. I don't think of nothing else but that. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
And like I said, the people that are complaining the most, get over yourselves. Who cares? Because honestly, if you would have figured out the same thing. By the way, Andrew Friedman, you know that there was an interview that he actually planned for this way before he ended up taking this job. He had a financial plan. And this is a guy who is doing this as well in Tampa. Yet how many World Series did Tampa win? And here's the thing. The Dodgers, people, what's funny about this is, okay. All right, let me go ahead and play the, let's play the thing and chase the news.
This is the hot press.
Just wanted to wrap this up because I do have the sound bite, by the way. So Chris Rose was very blunt and he was very honest about this. And again, Chris Rose, he's a guy that I respect a lot.
I like Chris Rose. He knows a lot about baseball.
He does. And so to me, this was the sound bite that we got here. For all of my audiences and my listeners, take a listen.
The baseball's got is that they've got a perception problem, not a reality problem. The perception is we shouldn't even bother with the 2025 season. Here's the reality. We've had 25 seasons since the turn of the century. In how many of those years did the team that had the best record win the World Series? You want to give me a guess?
6.
You nailed it. The Dodgers last year became the 6th team that finished with the regular season's best record to also go on and win the World Series. The other thing I hear from people is that, well, if you don't spend in the top half of the payroll, why even watch the season? Here's the reality. Same thing goes in the NBA. I just did the previous 8 years. Here's where the opening day payrolls ranked. Dodgers, and going backward of all the champions, 8th, 9th, 11th for the Astros, 13th for the Braves in 21, 2nd, 7th, 1st, 18th, and 14th. The NBA champions over that same span, Boston, 6th in payroll. Denver, the year before that, 9th, 1st, 13th, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 1st. The point is that good players cost money. If you don't want to watch baseball because you think, well, my team has no shot, so I'm not going to do shit. I'm going to go on to the next thing. And that's on you. And oh, by the way, all you people who are complaining that you're not going to be watching baseball, I'll see you March 27th on opening day because I know you're going to be there.
I mean, is he wrong? You know what I mean? So I thought that was probably arguably the best soundbite that I could have because he's right. Think about that. That many baseball teams who had arguably the best record in Major League Baseball, only 6 of them were victorious. 6.
Yeah.
You watch baseball as long as I have.
Look at the 01 Mariners.
Yes.
118.
They had arguably the greatest season in Major League Baseball, and yet they never won a title. Okay. Not every team that goes in and walks in with a record. I mean, we just watched the downfall of the Detroit Lions this year with injuries, 15-2. Yeah, what happened?
Look at the Arizona Diamondbacks like a couple years ago when it was Texas. The Diamondbacks barely made it into the playoffs. They made it in as the last wild card team with like an 89 and like 86
by the way,
record.
2011. The Milwaukee Brewers had arguably the best record in Major League Baseball. And the wild card team, the St. Louis Cardinals, literally knocked them out.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it's like, I think because in life, we have some type of perception that not everyone is going to be on, right? And that sometimes is what makes it confusing for the general public. You don't want to end up watching baseball all season long. And it's like I say, I'm still going to Coors Field, even no matter how bad the Rockies suck. I'm still going to be down there because I love baseball. And listen, my wife's a diehard Dodger fan. So, of course, she's obviously on cloud 9, and she's even saying the same thing. Well, if you're not spending the money on quality, that's a you problem. And that's why, it's hard. And I think we're realizing this in 2025. I don't want to get political here, but when are we going to draw the line that there is so much complaining going around in the world, but what are the people that are complaining? What are they doing personally? You're complaining about this. You're complaining about that. You're complaining about here and there. I mean, we just had a TikTok shutdown for literally hours. And I know some of it kind of affected people, but then what happened? It got lifted up. The world seems to be good. The world seems to be fine. And I think in me personally, I mean, there's going to be some shakeups to where I feel like we, the people, are going to be in good hands. I think we're going to be fine. And it's already going to be in, a position to where, there are certain executive orders and there's certain directions. This is why everybody, it's like, when do we put the feelings, when do we put the complaining, and when do we put all this stuff aside and actually just do what we know that we are capable of doing? Just because that there's a problem in this matter is not going to make me not go to the games. It's not going to make me not go to Coors Field and and just literally watch baseball. Okay, it's not going to stop me from doing that.
Yeah, who cares if the Rockies are the worst team in baseball?
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And but people, I've heard it all over in Denver. There are people who will never put any money down because of obviously the ownership. But you know what they do? They still do. They give you discounts on food. They give you discounts on tickets. They give you the whole entire price plan package. They're still going to do whatever it takes to basically discount it so that you go to the games. you're still doing them a favor. So it's like, quit your whining, quit your complaining, and get better. And it's like, but that's why I think Chris Rose was so cutthroat behind him, because he's right. That's a lot of teams that have had such great records, but only 6 of them to win World Series championships. I mean, think about that. If we're going to complain about, for over the past 20 years, that we've seen teams with arguably the greatest records in Major League Baseball, and only 6 of them were successful in winning World Series titles, like, come on. This is why I said this to everybody on the show. I said this to my audience before the season started. Just because they went and got Shohei Ohtani, and just because that they went and got all those players, does that equal a World Series title?
No.
Well, that usually doesn't. And so that's why I'm like, if you're going to get mad because of this point on, I've said it before, you're getting mad at the wrong thing. Okay? If you're going to get mad at a potential presidential candidate who's now started to make his moves, right? Once he got inaugurated, he started making his moves. And the thing of it is, you still have problems in your state. Who are you going to get more mad at there? The president or your representatives of your state? I'd say I would rather be hounding on my representatives of the state, because I want my state to get better. So it's like, come on. Who are we fooling? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just like, people that you want to throw your investigations, you want to throw all this, fine, go ahead. But I guarantee you one thing, they're not going to give a damn. Okay, the season's still arguably going to go on, and they're doing stuff like, how many people, and I know I've said this over and over again, but how many people have complained about one specific team in hockey that uses the LTIR that everybody else in the National Hockey League could easily do too? I mean, the Colorado Avalanche out here, they still have Gabe Landeskog. They have no idea what they're going to do with him because of the injuries, and they don't even know if he's going to skate on the ice again. Like, you could put him on the LTIR, grab some players, and then go on a run. It's not that hard. 16 other teams literally have done this. I mean, nobody, when Tampa Bay Lightning, when they were doing the rain, nobody questioned about that. Nobody threw out any investigations when it came to that. And by the way, look at the Yankees dynasty. Did anybody throw any investigations at them? No. Why? Because we were in hot stove times. It was East Coast. It was Red Sox, Yankees. Nobody questioned. Like, why are we doing this now? Is it because it's like, this is how you feel? Grow up. Give me a break. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I mean, if you're a little interested in it, I'd go on and check out the article that they're writing about and everything. But yeah, it's just.
I wouldn't even look. Listen, we know as a show, we get right to the deep throat. Okay, we get right to the cutthroat of things. Okay, I'm not going to waste my time on an article that I guarantee you, if I read through the first 5 sentences, watch how quickly I literally click off the article. Just 5 sentences. I'm serious. I am the kind, and this usually sometimes bothers like my wife at times, because it's like, you didn't read through the whole thing. I said, I already summed up everything. I've already retained the information. And in the first 5 sentences, if it's because it's like, well, they somehow, found financial money out of it. They went to San Francisco, and they were like the 49ers. They dug the goal. Like, shh, just drink a beer. Just because there is no money always printed every day. Nobody's going to care about that. Like, are you kidding me with this? You know how much money is made in cards alone? And I'm talking about all of like sports cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, all this stuff. People are making a fortune off this crap. They really are.
That and Paul Skeens card, somebody just pulled it the other day.
What are we doing?
Lucky. That's a $500,000 card right there.
You know what I say to a lot of people? I'll see you on opening day. I will see you out there on the field, okay? I will see you there in the stadium, because then I would love to say, oh, what happened? I just said you weren't going to go to the games anymore. They had a discount price. Yeah, shut up. I'd like, is it honestly going to stop you from going to Progressive Field, truthfully, if they're throwing you package plans? And
I mean, honestly, I haven't been to Progressive Field in like 4 or 5 years, so.
I mean, but if they gave you a package plan, right? Like if they gave you a 4-pack with like discounted food and drinks, like let's say hypothetically,
shit, if they gave me like a 10-ticket package for like $100, I'll take it.
You know what? See what I mean? Like, we're all business people here. We know what the agenda is.
Give me a 10-ticket package for $100. Sold.
Yeah. Shoot, I'd be getting Rockies tickets for probably like at least $5 a pop. They probably would cost that now it probably would cost that now in Sacramento with the A's. So it's like, it probably would cost maybe $1. I hate to degrade them, but you know, that's
because like the stadium only holds like 11,000. So
yeah. So I don't get it, man. I just feel like I've summed it up in my life. We're in 2025. I feel like people want to voice themselves out because they're bored and they want to voice themselves out.
Yep.
I could go into, again, that's just my friendly response. I would have filled with R-rated dialogue just by saying it, but of course we got to keep it PG because we got a lot of our great sponsorships and we got a lot of great people that take care of us. So, you know, like I said, I just think, and that may be something from my experience that I may end up having. My only uploaded exclusive shows. That's the part I know I will be raw and unfiltered on when I do that. Because I just feel like that's the kind of thing that if you really want to know what's really going on in my mind, you can just see that. But here we keep it very entertaining. We got people that love us and they take care of us very, very well. So we have to return the favor. All right. Good stuff. Appreciate everybody for being up on here tonight. We're back up on it on Friday. And as you know, AFC and NFC Championship prime predictions, Commanders, Eagles, Chiefs, and Bills. Can't wait to tap into that. All right. We'll see y'all on Friday and have our predictions from there as we get closer to Super Bowl 59. It's going to be a lot of, I can't even wait for it. Am I going to party? Am I going to party like it's 1992 or are we going to party like it's 2022? I could get either one of them.
Party like it's 2012.
Oh, God. It's going to be fun. But in the end, appreciate everybody for coming on here on the show with myself and Chase. We'll see you guys on Friday. Take care of yourselves and cannot wait for the prime predictions. We'll have it all more for you. See you later, folks.